from deterministic of previous software to the probabilistic, which we are seeing right now, is changing how we create and design the technology. When you click submit on a form or when you hit save on an app, you expect one thing, right? The same result every time whenever you use it. It's like a quiet deal between the humans and software for the past couple of decades. That's how the previous software used to work. You do your part, it does its part. No surprises. And that predictability, that's what built our trust with the existing software. If it behaved the same way yesterday, we assumed it will behave the same way today and tomorrow. But lately, things shifting in that relationship of technology. So right now, if you ask an AI to rewrite a sentence or summarize a email or notes or ask to create an image, it will provide you a response. And the next time you ask the exact same thing, even with the same prompt, it gives you something slightly different. It won't give a wrong answer. It will just be a different. It's like asking your favorite barista shop for the same coffee, and they hand you a new version of coffee every time you ask it. It will still great taste, but it's just not identical. It's a feature of how LLM works. And when we are building any AI tools right now, I think this is how the modern software technology is going to work. So it's as if software suddenly developed a sense of interpretation along with the execution. So previous software did only the execution. Right now, the software is doing interpretation along with execution. And I think this changes what it needs to design for the new software. Because when a system can vary its responses, when it can change its mind based on probability, we are no longer designing for a single response. We are designing for a range of possibilities. Maybe we can call them behavior spaces. Let's say if we are building a writing tool, in the behavior space, on one end, the response could be too robotic. On the other, it could drift off the topic. We need to tune it for that middle sweet spot where variation feels alive, but still aligned with the user. So we are not controlling the exact moves, but we are designing the conditions for good moves to happen, which can provide best experience for the user. And especially when it comes to designing the intelligence, which we are going to do in the next coming months or years, it is really about designing the relationships between the users, data, and the systems, which are LLMs that now speak back with the users. So the question as of now is, it's not just how AI changes the outputs. It's how we as designers should change our approach, should change our instincts when predictable software disappears and we are moving into another shift. So we are moving from the code that controls in the previous era of software to intelligent tools that collaborates with us as the users. To put it more simply, I would say old software, the kind of software we grew up designing for, it always walked a straight line. Same input, same result. But right now, AI doesn't walk in a straight line.
When you type something into an AI tool, it doesn't actually know the answer. What it does instead is make choices, tiny intelligent guesses, every time you write a word. It looks at all the words you've already typed and starts thinking, what could come next? This image shows how that works. The model takes your input. Say you wrote, my favorite color is, and then it starts predicting what might fit next. Maybe blue, green, red, or purple. It assigns a probability to each one, like blue might be 18%, green 8%, and so on. Then, depending on a few factors, how creative or consistent it's said to be, it picks one of those options. That's why if you ask the same thing twice, you might get slightly different answers. It's not random. It's just the model exploring possibilities, choosing from what could be true, not from a fixed rule. That's what makes it probabilistic and also a little more human.
So for example, it's trying to provide a response such as the sky is. So when it had written the sky is, there are multiple options that it's varying within itself. It could be the sky is blue, the sky is clear, the sky is limitless. Everything makes sense. But what to choose in between all these three is what the model is deciding. It's deciding based on the attention score, which it's giving to each of these words based on understanding the context of what you have provided in your question. So that's how it's choosing the sky is blue is perfect for the user to provide in this context as a response. So it is not making a mistake when it picks any of these words after the particular sentence. It's just exploring what could be true and what could be valid for this instance and the context. They don't execute certainty, they work in probability. And for us as designers, this changes everything because we are no longer defining every outcome. We are shaping the spaces where variations can happen. So just to give an metaphor, let's say, think of it like setting the stage lighting. You can control the boundaries, you can control the mood, but you let the actors in this context are the model and the user, play within them to respond to each other. In the new software right now, which we are going to build, then what does trust look like now? How can we design moments that help people stay calm even when the system surprises them? How can we make it normal? I think we should design the confidence for the users inside this unpredictability. So let's picture this for just a moment. You're watching someone use a new AI writing tool. You highlight a paragraph, select the content and click on summarize. And the model will give you a response in a clean, neat summary. Maybe then just out of curiosity, you hit summarize again. And this time, the model provided a different response. Maybe it is shorter, maybe it's more sharp. It is still right, but it's just not the same as the previous response. Which one's right in these two responses? Which ones to pick? This small hesitation, that is the shift which I'm speaking about in particular. That's where these old rules of software going to give away to something new. You might have seen this little reload type of button, which is nothing but a regenerate button in every chat-based LLM tool and even in code-based or other AI tools. It says almost casually, want a different answer to the same question or the prompt which you have provided. So in older design logic, that would have made no sense if I clicked on add to cart or if I clicked on FAQ question or if I do any interaction with the system, it should do the same thing. Why would I expect a different answer to the same question? In current software, which we are going to build, it works because it's honest. It quietly tells us there is not one perfect answer. There are a few that might work and you get to choose. It gives the users room to explore the options. That is the shift. We've already accustomed the users to these AI tools teaching in this manner, showing that the variation is not a flaw. It's part of how these tools work, how intelligence expresses itself. It's not a straight line anymore, not input to output. It's like designing the conditions around it, probabilities. So it's more like a space where things can move a little. You say to the model, the LLM, when we design, hey, this is where you can wander. And you will give option to the user as an empowerment. This is where and how you can steer the model. So places, small shared zones where intelligence and the user intention meet. And this is where the trust starts to grow. So the trust is not growing from being right every time, but from being open about how things work. So these little cues, which we are seeing in our existing AI tools, the verified tag or like option to regenerate the response again and providing the sources, these little cues matter. They make what's invisible feel visible. And these kind of things are building the trust for the user and making it feel safe for the user to use the particular technology. The better question now is, how do we make unpredictability feel natural for the users? Because the moment we stop trying to control every response from the model and start shaping the space where things can happen, that's when this kind of design starts to feel human. Let us explore how this idea shows up in the tools we build, maybe in places of interaction. As we have previously discussed, the reason button, which we have seen in most AI tools, the system is quietly saying, I could show you another way. Do you want to look? And suddenly what felt uncertain for the user becomes a small act of collaboration between the user and the system, the user and the model specifically. So it's no longer the system got it wrong if it provides a different response. It's like we are exploring this together. We are collaborating. The shift is happening from simply giving answers to discovering them side by side. In some AI tools, we even have this feature of compare the drafts. So a same LLM can provide two different drafts for the same input which the user had provided, or a lot of times users are using multiple chat-based LLMs or AI writing tools to provide the same input and comparing the responses from two different models to look which one is better. In a lot of AI tools right now, if you ChatGPT, Canvas, or Notion AI, we have something called tone sliders. It could be in form of sliders or it could be in form of drop downs. It just says more formal, more friendly, make it shorter, change the tone. At first, they look like very simple controls, just a drop down options or something. But what they're really doing is tuning this probability field. So we are narrowing the range of what the model explores. It's like telling our creative partner, stay in this vibe, but surprise me within it. We are guiding the system without casing it. Let me say a concept called temperature in a brief manner. So whenever you ask the model to be very creative and be very restrictive, the model in itself is changing its temperature. When you set the temperature to 0.9, the model will wander. The model will be more creative and it could sometimes drift off the topic. When you set the temperature to 0.2, you get very reliable, almost the exact same context which you have provided the model. In other words, it's designing the limits of exploration of the model. We are telling the model how much creative to be in, whether it should be more creative or less creative, or should we give the option to the user. This is what we are designing by giving the controls to the user and setting the context for the model. Based on the product and the context feature which we are going to use at that particular point of time, we should set the temperature of the model in different ways. So these little badges, verified, or when it provides a response, this is the linked source. They do more than showing the data. They show like care. Hey, this is what you have asked me and I've did a thorough checkup. If we are not providing these kind of verified or sources when it provides responses, especially when it comes to health or finance, which are very crucial to have the sources, that will definitely break the trust. Nothing breaks trust faster than a machine pretending to be sure when it's not. Together, these patterns, regenerate, comparing the drafts, tone sliders, linkage of sources, these are all forming a new grammar of design for this new software. They're not trying to erase the uncertainty, they are shaping it to make it normal for the user. Let's step beyond the interface layer for a moment. So, how teams actually can test and evaluate these probabilistic systems? How do we know that the AI tool which we have designed is ready to ship? Because the model could give a wide range of probabilistic responses. So once we accept that AI doesn't behave the same way twice, testing shifts from a binary checklist. We do have this binary checklist of does it work or does it not work? Now, we are moving from it into an ongoing study of behavior. We will study the patterns over time. It's less about whether this had passed or this had failed. It's about how is the model behaving over that period of time in different conditions. So we can think it of through three lenses, which I wanted to explain briefly in the next further slides: statistical testing, red teaming, and qualitative checks. So statistical testing looks at consistency. So we will run the same input hundreds of times to see how stable the responses are, because even for the same input and prompt, the model can provide different responses. If the variation is too wide, we don't patch a bug like previous software. We will adjust the temperature, or we will try a different data set, or we will tune the prompt to a better context. Then there is red teaming. Think of it like testing your own creation with a little bit of stress. What happens if I push this model into a tricky or sensitive corner? Because these are edge cases and there are a wide variety of users. Your business is going to scale across different audiences, different countries, different contexts. So we need to think of different edge cases and push the model into tricky or sensitive corners. Then we will review the model responses. Instead of taking good responses and praising it, we are trying to break it in creative ways. That's why we are learning how the model will behave and responding under stress, and not just how it performs when everything is perfect. The third one is qualitative checks. So this is similar to qualitative research, which we do in UX. This is bringing users right back into the process. We sit beside the users, or we silently observe the users and watch how they interact with the models or AI tools which we have built. We pay attention to where trust cracks just a little. When the model is providing the responses, are the users feeling the tone too confident, or is something like a fact sounding off to them? Are they giving a tiny pause before they are moving on? These types of hesitations that human signal is where the real insight lives as the designers when we are building the products. Metrics can tell us how close something is to being right, but only people can tell you when they stop trusting it. In the new software, we are not testing for perfection anymore. We are testing for the trust. Trusting the model and its response. In previous software, when something failed, you could point to the exact line of code that broke. But in AI, there is no single culprit. Wrong answer might come from the model sampling, or a dataset bias, or a user prompt that confused it. So responsibility becomes shared in this context between designer, developer, data, and the model itself. So visibility matters more than being perfect in the new software. The topics like explainability matters a lot. When I say explainability, it's not about showing every detail of how the model is working behind the scenes and what process it had done. It's about helping people understand how things work in a very concise, sneak peek manner. When they can see that, they can trust it more. Can we make the AI more reliable? I think the question which we should think is, can we make its reliability visible to the users? Because people can handle a system that's sometimes wrong as long as it's transparent about it. Let us look what it could be in practice. How do we make uncertainty feel ordinary? Something people can live with, not worry about. To make things easier, let's ground it in a hypothetical scenario. Let's say there's a product. We are designing an AI assistant for journalists that helps them turn their long factual press releases, which they publish in the newspapers and blogs, into a good, concise article content and engaging headlines. Now you know what journalists need. Journalists need speed and accuracy. They can't publish something that's almost true. They need exact facts. At the same time, they also need freshness. A spark of creativity that makes a headline sing. Basically, we need the hook. The hook is really important to draw attention from the user. So how do you design for both truth and imagination at once? This is tricky. Let's see how we can unfold this. Let's imagine the interface where the journalist comes and uploads an article. And when the upload had been completed, the system, the model, extracts the facts. Maybe it could be the company name, funding, amount, investor, date, such crucial things. It surfaces them in a sidebar. Almost these are fixed anchors. So this is what I call as deterministic foundation. The parts that says these are non-negotiable. This is what we need to refer and keep in context every time I provide any response to the user. Then comes the fun part, the probabilistic layer. So assume the journalist clicks generate headlines. For this particular article, the model begins sampling possibilities, different responses. The AI startup secures $10 million to fuel automation, or investors bet big on the next wave of ethical AI. It will provide all sorts of different headlines. Each result or each response from the model comes out a little different, but everyone makes sense. It's like a variation on the same truth. This is what I call as probabilistic layer, the creative fog where ideas emerge. But when you're generating these headlines, we don't let that fog drift too far. We should control it. So we will shape it gently. There are moments for play and there are moments for control. Early on, I want the model give the room to wander. So there's a generate variations of headlines button, or I might give a surprise me button to the user, just enough to invite creativity without losing the thread. When the user feels this is not relevant or contextual to article content, we will slow it down. In such cases, to make sure not the model not drift apart from the context, we can provide certain options like fact lock. Just a toggle button, it freezes the names and numbers and certain instances within the article content. We can also provide a small site source tag. It's like whenever you regenerate and provide me a headline, you should tell me why you have provided this particular headline. Where did you got the source from? Is it from the content or the other thing? So let's say we have a tone slider and the user clicked on make it sharper. The model rewrites, keeping the facts locked with the toggle buttons which we have provided previously and whatever the context in the sidebar which we have locked. So this is the interaction loop. The designer defines the boundaries. The designer will provide the tools for the user to steer, and the model will explore within them, and the human guides the flow. Before publishing, the journalist clicks verify facts. Let's assume he had picked a headline and the article content. The user is happy with both the responses and he clicked on verify facts now before the review. We can showcase the entire thing on the screen with a simple visual cue where we showcase green, which responds the system is sure of this particular content, yellow where it's not, which is not sure from the system side. Maybe, for example, the investor name not confirmed in the source. We could showcase it as a small tooltip or in the yellow visual cue for the user. So it doesn't sound like an alarm or alert. It's just a calm note. Investor is not confirmed or investor might be wrong in this case. Please tap to check the source or provide the source. The system is interacting with the user in format of saying, hey, here's what I know and here's what I don't. So this is where the trust lives, not in pretending the model knows everything, but in showing where it's still unsure. This flow, explore, refine, verify, learn, this is what I call probabilistic deterministic alignment. We are blocking the things which are deterministic and we are giving the user option to steer the model where the probabilistic can happen. We need to design for this probabilistic deterministic alignment to give the best experience for the users with this new form of software. Every AI product today, like Notion AI or Copilot, is designing the same playbook on the same steps. It gives you freedom when you need creativity. It gives you grounding when you need the truth. We are inviting the steering from the user to the model. When it's tuned right, users feel both empowered and safe because you gave them controls and it's providing the responses within the context. Designing AI is not about controlling outcomes anymore. It's about shaping the conditions for intelligence to behave well. To just repeat the instance where we have started the episode. For decades, we designed the things to do exactly what we told them to do. You click a button, it ends the same way. But now we're not really in control in that same sense. We are in conversations with a system that interprets and sometimes surprises. So our job is not to fight that, it's to guide it. We are trying to nurture the trust inside something that learns and evolves. This feels deeply human because that's what every meaningful relationship runs on, probability. We trust others not because they never get it wrong, but because they're transparent when they do and they keep trying to get it right. This is why we trust the people. That's exactly the kind of trust we have to build with AI systems right now. So when we talk about designing for uncertainty, we are really talking about designing for humility, teaching our tools to say, hey, I might be wrong, but here's what I see. At least for now, that's enough. That's the beginning of something honest. That's the real invitation here, like not to make AI flawless, but to make it trustworthy in its flaws. When we began, I talked about that simple contract we always had with software, same input, same output. That predictability made us felt safe. This is what I've told. But now the contract is changing. So our tools doesn't just execute anymore. They interpret. They don't always repeat the same. Sometimes they respond because they interpret now. Now, as designers, we have to design with uncertainty because it asks us to bring something like patience, curiosity, and empathy into how we build technology itself. We are learning to work with systems that think in possibilities, not just instructions, and that requires a deeper kind of trust, the kind that comes from understanding, not obedience. As we move forward into this new chapter of AI design, maybe the real question is not how do we make AI behave more like software? Maybe it is how do we make it behave more like something we can relate to, something that learns, adapts, and still respects the human boundaries. Because designing AI for humans is not just about better interfaces, it's about shaping a future where intelligence, human or machine, acts with awareness, accountability, and care. The good design is knowing how much unpredictability is safe. This is where the good design is going to get shaped. How do we hold all this, the creativity, the uncertainty, the trust, and make it into product practice? We can keep these 4 things in mind whenever we are going to design the products. These are the 3 principles: surfacing the uncertainty, designing for the steering, and balancing the randomness. First, surface uncertainty. Don't hide the model response behind some polished output to look perfect. Show it in a way that builds the confidence. A small cue, maybe a confidence score, a gentle note, a place where the system can admit what it is unsure about, such that it will be a collaborative process. The users doesn't need perfection. They need honesty and transparency in the design. Second, we should design for steering. The user should steer the model instead of fixing the model. The users will guide the model to obtain the expected response. Buttons like regenerate, rephrase, or tone sliders, these features helps the users to guide the system and the model. This forms the collaboration with the intelligence. The third is balancing the randomness with responsibility. Every product will have a temperature. We should tune it to the context we are designing for. Let's say a content writing tool where a person writing novels can be very much creative and can afford surprises, whereas a medical or financial one cannot afford the surprises. It needs to be willing to the content which have been uploaded, or the model needs to respond in such a manner where it is very restrictive instead of creative. We need to build the visibility into the process. We should track how the model behaves, where it is drifting, giving different responses which are not with respect to context, and how are the users reacting to the model responses. So this is more of a learning. The more clearly we see uncertainty, the more responsibly and the better we can design around it. We should start asking, when designing this new kind of probabilistic software, how can we make this easier and more natural for people to use? Instead of building certainty into the UI, let us build and design understanding around the uncertainty for the probabilistic systems. Thanks for listening to the first episode of Designing AI for Humans. In the next series of podcast episodes, we'll keep exploring how AI connects these technical possibilities with the real human needs. I'll try to bridge the research and design and the way we are actually building these kind of tools. When we go back to our own work, we should hold this question: what kind of intelligence are we designing for?